Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Let's Talk About series. So what I want to talk about today is my 3 favorite book series growing up. Like I said, as much as I enjoyed reading when I found the right series, I had a hard time finding the kinds of series and the kinds of books that I really actually wanted to read. I wasn't a read every single book I get my hands on kind of person. Now, I can't quite remember what order these books came in for me, so I'm going to start ourselves off with the series that I probably had the least amount of memories of. All these I would love to go back and reread just because they have obviously stuck with me in some way or another, whether I remember all the details or not. But the first one is Wolves of the Beyond. Now, I remember getting either the first book or the second book and reading partway through, and then maybe I got the second one and then realized I didn't have the first one and I had to go back and reread the first one in order to understand what was happening with the second one. I can't remember, but Wolves of the Beyond was the first series that I remember reading like the entirety of it. It basically follows this wolf pup, which I think his name was Fallon, who was born with a twisted paw, and for some reason that made his mom think, I don't want him anymore, and so she abandoned him out in the wilderness, or the pack made her abandon him out into the wilderness. I'm not quite sure which one. And then he is raised by a grizzly bear. He's found by like this mom grizzly bear, and I don't know if she had recently lost a cub or if she just felt really maternal at that point in time, but she decides to raise this wolf pup, and then he eventually like goes back and rejoins his pack, I think. Like I said, I can't really remember a whole lot of what happens in this book series. So looking at it, it appears that there is 6 books in the series. Now that I see all the covers, like I recognize them, but I can't remember for the life of me like what they're really about. I mean, I know that they're about Fallon and his kind of like moving up the tiers of like his wolf pack and like learning how to be a wolf after being raised by a bear. I remember that much. Book 1 is Lone Wolf, then there's Shadow Wolf, Watch Wolf, Frost Wolf, Spirit Wolf, and then finally Star Wolf. The author of these books is Catherine Lasky. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And the titles I'm seeing are like the books, because I'm looking at like a cover, like a picture of all the books together. It says Return to the World of Guardians of Ga'Hoole. I recognize that as a book or I remember the movie about like some owls who were like fighting each other. I can't quite remember. But Wolves of the Beyond, I remember just really enjoying the books. I think Shadow Wolf, because I recognize that cover the most, I think I might have picked up, or somebody got me. For some reason in my head, it was my aunt, but I can't quite remember for sure. Had gotten me Shadow Wolf, and then I read it or read part of it, and then was like, wait a minute, this is book 2. I should go back and read book 1. And then I think somewhere, I don't know if my family's gotten rid of them or if I got rid of them, but I remember reading all of these. I just can't quite remember what happens in them, but like when looking at like the summary and stuff like that, like it seems very familiar to me, and I would love to go back at some point in time and reread all of these. I feel like maybe I read these. I remember this was probably like lower elementary, mid elementary, possibly. Like high elementary, mid elementary. And so it's like part of it I don't quite remember, and so it's like I'm wondering if my brain was like fully comprehending what these books were about. And so I would love to go back at some point in time and reread this book series. So that was Wolves of the Beyond. If you've ever read that series or ever heard of it at least, feel free to leave a comment or something in the comment section down below. My next one I feel like is going to have more popularity, and it's the one I remember the most. I was a hardcore Warriors fan. Now, if you don't know, the Warriors book series is by Aaron Hunter, which is like a pseudonym for like a bunch of different authors that work together. And it's about a bunch of cats that live in the forest that create like clans, and like they fight each other, and then like they fight other things, and then they're fighting all the time. And it's a really awesome book series. I remember loving it so much growing up. I remember what started me into it. I really didn't have a book series at that point in time, I remember. And then I was at a Barnes & Noble's, and my dad is like, this one, Into the Wild. He picked it up and he's like, you should read this one. I don't know if he had like seen it somewhere or if he was just like, this has a cat on it. My daughter loves animals. She wants to read this one. But I don't know if he realized it or not, but this really took me on an adventure, and there's new books being published to this day. I have yet to read most of them, but they're still being published to this day, and I've read so many of them. So there's like arcs where like they follow different characters and they follow different parts, different like stories and like different places in time. So let me talk you through. There's The Prophecy Begins. That one was the first arc. That one follows this. Use some terminology here. This one follows a kitty pet named Rusty, who becomes a member of the clan because he doesn't want to get fixed, more or less. He becomes Firepaw, and it's just kind of his journey, like getting into the clan. Kitty pet, just another word for a cat who is tamed, who is raised by humans, 2 legs, if you will. Got my terminology. I got this going on. And so The Prophecy Begins, read that whole series. The New Prophecy, I have to almost like look at they've changed the covers of these. I'm kind of miss the old covers. If you don't, sorry. I like the cat in the circle, sorry. These new covers, very nice, but I'm having a hard time recognizing which one is which. Maybe if I type in, hold on. Yes, okay. And then it is The New Prophecy. And that one follows this other cat, this other boy cat, and kind of his journey of like acceptance because his father was like kind of a bad guy, I guess. I know. His father was kind of a bad guy, and so it's like kind of like his journey to find like who he is, kind of more or less, I suppose. And then we had The Power of Three, which follows, I think it's his kids, possibly. They're all kind of connected. Power of Three follows the cat from The New Prophecy's children, I believe, possibly. I might be getting that wrong, but I think it's his kids. It's like 3 together, and like they're working together to like to fulfill some sort of prophecy, to do something. I can't quite remember what they're doing. And there's The Omen of the Stars. This follows someone's kids. I can't quite remember whose kids, but somebody's. And I think quite possibly, because I'm starting to, the next one it says Dawn of the Clans. I think I read a couple of those, but then it's like Vision of the Shadows, The Broken Codes, The Starless Clan, Changing Skies, which is upcoming. I don't really recognize those. Dawn of the Clan, I think I've read a couple of those, but A Vision of Shadows? No, I don't recognize A Vision of Shadows, which makes me think this was the 6th series within the franchise. Focuses on, yeah, okay. I have not read this part yet, because this is a clan that I recognize, but I don't know very well. It's more of a, basically, sorry, let me talk a little bit about the clans. I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. I loved the Warrior series. I read them at least 4 of the series, which has like 6 books in each series. So like I've read 24 of the main books, and then I also had a bunch of the special edition, super edition, like side stories, which was just like, some of them were like really big, thick books that like took specific characters, because there's so many characters in this series, that took like specific characters and kind of like padded out their story. Like, oh, how did this leader become this leader? Or how did this bad guy become the bad guy? So things like that. But there's like different clans that the cats are, kind of like different like Hogwarts houses if you're into Harry Potter, but there's different clans. And so there's Thunder Clan, River Clan, Shadow Clan, and Wind Clan. So they kind of all like had their own like beliefs and thoughts, more or less, but they all kind of like lived kind of not like really well together, because they fought over land and food and stuff like that, but they lived like around each other and like held meetings and stuff like that. And so this is one that if I had time, I would love to go back and reread the Warrior series, because, and I feel like I've restarted it a couple times before, but I just never get past very far into it. I have all the books hidden somewhere in my room. I took them with me, unlike Wolves of the Beyond. Sorry, Wolves of the Beyond. I took most of them with me. But yeah, I'm gonna have to reread the Warrior series, because I was a bit of a Warriors girly. I absolutely adored this series and would love to read it again. So I feel like that one's like a very well-known series. So would love to hear your guys' thoughts, or if you guys read the series, or your thoughts on the series, if your cousin, your weird nephew, or whatever it is, that read the story. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the Warriors series in the comment section down below. And the last one, I promise it's not an animal. Well, it's kind of an animal, but not quite an animal-focused one. I'm not a furry. Is the Unicorn Chronicles. Now, this was a 4-book series when I read it that I absolutely adored so much. I remember reading these at my brother's baseball games. I remember this being like the thing I used to pass the time at the baseball games. Looks like since Bruce Colville, I don't know how to say this last name, sorry. Basically, it follows this 11-year-old girl who has to go on a journey to deliver a message to this unicorn queen, and along the way she meets unicorns, dragons, and a bunch of other mythical creatures and all this stuff. When I read it, it was a 4-book series. Looks like it's been expanded and re-released with more stuff in it. I'm not quite sure if it's like new information, but I really like the old covers. The first one is Into the Land of the Unicorns, and then there is the, I think it's Song of the Wanderer, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then, I'm trying to remember what the other, Dark Whispers. I got it right here, I see it now. And then The Last Hunt. And then it looks like they maybe revised it later on in like 2018, and they split it into 7 books, which basically they just took all the books and they split them up, because apparently we can't have a giant chunky book anymore. I think this one would be the one that I would have most interest in rereading again, because 4 seems more because 4 seems more manageable than reading 24 books again. Plus, so I would love to reread the Unicorn Chronicles. I remember really, really enjoying this series. I feel like I read it at least twice, possibly. I remember reading the series when my brother was playing baseball. I can't remember how I got into it, but I just remember really, really liking this series. All right, so those were 3 book series that I really enjoyed when I was younger, when I was little. Wolves of the Beyond, Warriors, and then finally the Into the Land of the Unicorns, the Unicorn Chronicles in general. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section, whether you've read these books before, or you've heard of them before, or you're looking for a book to read. Would definitely recommend any of these books, especially if you're into more of the, of course, fantasy kind of books. It's pretty obvious what my type of book when it comes to reading was at that age. And I still enjoy them to this day. Not very much of a reader anymore, and so I'm wondering if reading these can help me kind of like get back into reading a little bit more, if I can revisit some of these favorites. So thank you all so much for watching. Would love to hear your book recommendations, whether it's books that you're reading right now, or what I would really love to hear is what books captured your heart as a child or as a young adult, perhaps. I think all these would fall into the young adult category. So would love to hear the books either that you're reading now, or the books that you loved so much as a young adult, or if you read mine, you'd love to chat about those. I would love to continue the conversation down in the comment section. If you've not already, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and of course hit and subscribe, because my goal is to make it to 1,000 subscribers, and I feel like we've been kind of like inching our way up. I'm not quite sure what our count is at right now. Let me take a peek. We're currently at 782, so it feels like it's getting closer and closer each video. It feels like it's more so within our grasp. So my goal is to make it to 1,000 subscribers though, so if you have not already, if you want to help a fellow storyteller, book lover, well, a childhood book lover, I'm not much of a reader anymore, but I would love to be out. Would appreciate if you press subscribe. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. All right, bye.